Well, welcome. You join me all on what is a very, almost certainly at some point to rain on us good morning walk. Oh, but yes. Ooh, it's cold, not compared to last week where it was surprisingly quite warm. No, I'm fully kitted out today because it's going to be a bit cold. It's going to be a cold one. Ah, Bayek. So, good morning, good morning. Cathal, good morning to you. As I squelch through this mud. Ooh. Yes, good morning everyone. Welcome to the Good Morning Walk. It's going to be a very wet and dreary one today. I don't know if you can already hear the mud under my feet. Oh, good morning from Lubin, from 27 Brothers, Bike Brothers. Mickey, good morning to you. Wolfgang, I think that's right. So good morning from Germany. So guten Morgen to you. That's Amelia from Finland. Good morning to you. I don't know if I've had anyone from Finland before, but good morning to you. Whoop. And welcome to what is a very wet, very muddy, very dreary morning here in Yorkshire. Prinny Bird, good morning to you. It's the wee hours for the morning for you. Oh, no, squelch. Make my way very slowly but surely across here. It will probably rain at some point today, so it is threatening to do so today. So I won't be surprised if I have to cut this short, because I think it's going to absolutely tip it down here. I don't know if you can see the sky in the background, but yeah, it's looking pretty mean. So with this, let's get down to business then, shall we? This week, well, Boris Johnson got accused of corruption again. Yeah, I say that jokingly, but obviously it's quite serious. Turns out one of his yes, this is true Yorkshire sunshine. They always say it's grim up north for a reason. So one of the big, obviously, things was the continuing wallpaper scandal yet again. Some people thought that it would have died down, but no, these WhatsApp messages do look as if this is going to reignite the whole scandal again and continuously rip up the voter coalition that the Tories have indeed built. Indeed, you saw on, if you saw any of the highlights of Prime Minister's question times yesterday, not yesterday, Prime Minister, the PMQs on Wednesday, shall we say, there were a lot of Conservative backbenchers basically airing their worries that their voter coalition was indeed going to fall apart. And I've learnt this morning, indeed, what could potentially be a very interesting scenario. A couple of weeks ago, you had the far right wing of the party come out, and who are again climate deniers, because again that's part of their whole bag, came out and said that the government's target of net zero and all the policies that the government have suggested are just completely unsustainable, which is kind of funny, because coming up to obviously COP26, a lot of them were all about you know, the climate and achieving net zero. Oh, hang on. Right. There we go. I don't know if you can tell, but it's already raining. So they've basically come out and said, the far right of the libertarian wing of the party come out and said it's all unsustainable. The policies are terrible, they're not going to work. This is the reason for all the high energy prices. We need to get rid of them. And as I've said before, it's often fun to try and find out what their alternative is to this. And very often there just isn't an alternative. Or the alternative they suggest is just, well, we'll just carry on as normal, or just blame China. It'll be fine. Oh dear. It is truly coming down now. So that is pretty much their standard operating policy on this. Hang on, I'm going to have to... There we go. Just to at least try and protect the phone a bit. Oh, good morning, good morning. Good morning to people joining us. You join us on a very, very wet good morning walk this morning. This might be quite a short one this morning because I don't know if you can tell, it's coming down pretty hard. So you've had the climate deniers of the party come out and rubbish the government's own policy literally after a couple of weeks after COP26. And more worryingly, of course, it was the same group of people who recently voted against the new COVID restrictions in their rebellion. Now, of course, that bill went through and the vote passed, mostly because Labour went, don't be stupid, let's pass it. But what the Tories are mostly worried about... Oh, David Falconer, thank you very much. Good afternoon from Hong Kong. Good afternoon to you. What the Tories are most worried about here is the reception that they actually got from that. Because overwhelmingly, the public were in favour of those COVID restrictions. And this pretty much meant that they got a really, really bad public reaction from it. And of course, they are very, very much worried about their public reaction going into the next general election. And this morning, we've had, after, shall we say, the Wednesday, when Angela Rayner, by the way, did absolutely sterling work on Wednesday. Credit where credit is due. Good on Angela Rayner for holding Johnson's feet to his fire. Because she did an absolutely sterling job. But of course, the big thing that was brought up there was, of course, the energy prices. And the worry among Conservative MPs that they were going to get blamed for all this, and they are going to get blamed for all this, is their policies that have now come to this. And in fact, we'll have a situation now where the government once broke up the energy companies into like smaller companies, so there was like more competition. We've had what, 26 different energy companies collapse, and pretty much now like the UK energy market is essentially practically at this moment in time back in the hands of the big six energy companies here in the UK. And of course, Johnson didn't bail out these companies, didn't help them out in any way. And this is going to lead to massive rises in energy prices, and fuel poverty is already going to skyrocket because of this. Hang on, I'm going to have to dive underneath these trees, because my word, it is absolutely tipping it down. I don't know if you can tell here. But yeah, this might be quite a short good morning walk this morning. As I always say, sometimes the weather colludes against us. Although this might mean that I might go back, set up the studio, and then continue on when we get there. But, oh, what's this slip under here? Oh. Some shelter at least here. Oh. So overall, the Tories are worried, especially the Red Wall Tories. They do not want to be one-term MPs. They want to make it a career, but unfortunately, well, they got given, should we say, the worst seats in all this. And there is a lot of people saying that this year especially, there is going to be a lot of people, unfortunately, having to make some very tough decisions, essentially, between either heating or eating. And as you can tell from this morning, Boris Johnson and even the rest of the Tories were very, very much hoping for a warm winter. It doesn't look like that is indeed going to happen. And I've said it before, but 2022 is going to be a bad year. It's going to be a bad year for a whole lot of people. Of course, the Tories are going to have a bad year as well. But I'm not sure to say really too worried about them. But there are hundreds of people in this, in my town, that are going to be faced with some very, very hard decisions. Like I've just said there, between heating and eating. And then you have obviously the fun this morning, which we'll have to see how this actually develops. Oh, Tudors Cantwell. 100 years this week, the illegal Dillerats, the Anglo-Irish Treaty. Last week, the defunct Southern Parliament later ratifies, then handed to Michael Collins in Dublin Castle, Lord Lieutenant Collins. I think it's the 100-year anniversary of the. I didn't realise it was that weekend. If it was, I'm just wet completely. But yeah, this isn't going to go well. And the Tories, interestingly, I've said before that there's going to be a Tory civil war, and We have had just this morning another group of what are they called now? Tories for climate or something like that. I think they've called themselves, basically saying that the government's targets for net zero are right, but it should be done through taxing, helping these people out, rather than well, what should we say should be the right way to do? The right way we solve this crisis and the right way we help these people out is by essentially creating a windfall tax, especially on the oil and gas companies. If you have that, you can put a whole lot of money into helping all these very, very poor people who essentially have nothing, and that would be the best way to solve it. And I really do hope that Labour start championing that as an idea, because they could absolutely destroy the Tories on their idea, because the people who are profiting most from all this misery that is being created are the oil and gas companies. So they are going to profit to the tune of billions from all this. So they should indeed be taxed, and then this money sent to the people who need it most. But of course, the Tories are never ever going to do that. So the chances of that happening, of course, are very slim. But interestingly enough, the main point of that, and the most interesting point of that, was, of course, the fact that you've had two groups of Tories, as we've said before, split along these very different ideological grounds, who are now going to go, are we not together on this? What are you doing? So this could be, I think, this year, a start of a proper Tory civil war. Tory groups briefing against each other, saying that their idea is terrible. This could lead to some very open and out factional warfare. The fact that another Tory group has come out and said, actually, most MPs are in favour of net zero and the government's plans. What are you talking about? So that could be fun. That could be fun to watch happen and evolve into Tory factional infighting, almost certainly. So it is indeed going to come down to this, I think. And as someone's just said in the chat there, Darren Marson here, while Labour are appealing to the centre, they will win a thing. Tories will always appeal to the centre at the same time, dog whistling to the right. They have more voter base to choose from. Yes, you are in a sense right, but this new voter coalition that Boris Johnson has built, which sailed them to their massive majority, is depending on a whole lot of people who voted Tory for the very first time and are not happy. I've said this before. They are still called the Red Wall seats. They're still called Red Wall Tories. They themselves, that group, the group of Northern Tory MPs that they've separated themselves into now, are desperate to try and separate themselves from the rest of the Tory party. They do not want to be seen in the same light as someone like Jacob Rees-Mogg or even the rest of the other party. They are desperate to be apart from that. We've had numbers of them constantly speak out against Boris Johnson very recently, criticising him very heavily over this. And especially this fuel crisis that is going to happen, this new winter of discontent is going to be fueled and it felt most acutely in these red wall seats. And the government will do nothing. The government will do nothing to help them. So, because the government has done nothing to help them, we've had a whole lot of people recently. This is why at the moment Keir Starmer is ahead in the polls. This is why Boris Johnson's, um, opinions falling. Yeah, Chris Town. Yeah, you live in Kent, and what are Kent Tory MPs asking for? Levelling up funds. Yeah, exactly. Same are the MPs in the north who are asking for these levelling up funds. This whole idea of levelling up is going to fall completely apart from this. You think the Red Wall Tories are going to fall into line? What reason do they have to fall into line with the party? If they think they can stay elected by casting themselves as, hey, why vote Labour? If Labour are going to be out of power, why not vote Tory? And then you can have an MP who's in power, who can help get you the change you need, not an MP sitting in opposition that can't do anything. That is their current strategy. That is what they're going to go for. And that will mean, as we have seen constantly from the Northern Research Group, speaking out against a lot of the Tory plans. You had the MP for Hartlepool, the first big by-election. Again, another classic red wall seat. Her and Boris were literally in photo ops saying, "Oh my God, what a wonderful win! What a wonderful win for the group, for the people of Hartlepool." Literally a couple of weeks later, she's up in Parliament admonishing Boris Johnson for what he's been up to, his plans, the lockdown scandal. They're not going to step in line. True, but we do need to keep an eye on voting rotos. That is true. And I think that's eventually what will, come to hit them most acutely. Because sooner or later they will have to do two of the things. They will actually have to vote against the government, or just, as they say, fall in line and then be vocal critics. And I think that is potentially what we could see here. And I think if they do that, it's very, very interesting. Yeah, you are right. So again, I've said this before. If you look at the voting public, and you take everyone and you say, where do you land on the scale? Are you left, centre, or right? And I know, especially online, there is a big meme about people being centrist, but in the UK, especially, and I've said this before, when you poll people, 25% people say they're right wing, 30%, although it's more than that, 35% people say they're centrists, and then another 25% say they're on the left. So no party, either right or left, can win without that centre ground vote. You just can't. You just cannot win. So any party, even again, Corbyn, even if Corbyn was MP, well, the leader again, he wouldn't be able to do so without appealing to the centre, and he did in some ways definitely try that and appeal to the centre, because we know time and time again, when we see people polled on policy, they want the rich to be taxed more, they want corporations to be taxed more, they want a welfare state, they want public services, they want a well-funded NHS, all the things that the Tories do not want. Yeah, and I think it is a very US thing, the whole centrist thing, but again, when you speak out online and you say centrist, it's in a lot of people's minds they've picked up on that culture. Yeah, that is another thing as well, dude. Again, same as seem to be anywhere in the world. There are a whole group of people who are non-voters, and we need to get them out to vote because, again, they can deliver big results. But because of especially the UK system, how that works, if you drive those voters out, where are those voters most congregated? Where are they most situated? And I couldn't tell you exactly for 100% sure and accuracy, but I almost guarantee you all those non-voters are in the big cities. I guarantee you that's where they most are. And of course, if you do drive them out, yes, it will probably drive up that voter in that thing in that specific seat. But it's because of how, again, our patchwork and the first past the post systems, our first past the post system works. It's very bad. And yet, you are right. It's universities. It's young people. And I always say this before, young people, you need to get out and vote. Seriously. The reason why, like, old people and like old age pensioners, like, get so much attention in Parliament, is because they vote. The older you get, the more likely you are to vote. I mean, the first time I voted, when did I vote now? Yeah, I was in college. And it was the European parliamentary election, I believe it was. So I could vote when I was 16 for that. And then my first general election vote was at university, I think. So yeah, I voted for Lib Dems when I was down in Leicester. Again, I actually remember, what was his name now? Sheffield Hallam MP, Nick Clegg, that was it. I actually remember Nick Clegg coming to our university and seeing him speak and trying to motivate young people to, go out and vote. And in that election, you did have an increase of young people go out and vote. So the Lib Dems were actually right in that way to do that. The biggest problem they then faced was when they got into power, they then dropped their biggest policy pledge, which was, of course, getting rid of tuition fees, which a lot of, again, the student population, probably their biggest concern is tuition fees. So you need to have policies that will appeal to voters. And because they dropped that, I can tell you now, anyone of like my generation is very, very skeptical of voting for the Lib Dems. Very skeptical of voting for the Lib Dems. But we've also got legal weed. That's a massive minefield in this country still. A massive country. Massive minefield. And I agree it should be legalized. Like, let's just treat it as alcohol. Treat it as alcohol. All the profits should then go into healthcare and treat drug use not as a criminal issue, but as a health issue. That would be far, far better. Yeah. As Darren said, always been into politics, but the first time you vote is 35. You're not alone in that. I've seen people say the same thing, and older people as well. Like, someone said the first time they voted was in their 40s. And you're like, hold on, how many general elections did you live through and not vote? But this is what happens, especially in a country where you have safe seats as well. Safe seats discourage people from going out to vote. And again, because of how our system works, it takes, I think, normally about, is it 15 to 20,000 votes for a new Conservative MP to get in, but for a Labour MP to get in, it can take roughly around 50,000 votes. So you can see the problem here in our system instantly, which is why I've said again last week I've said before, we need to drive reform for our voting system, not just for the House of Commons, but also, of course, for the House of Lords as well. And I've said before to a lot of, campaign changes, yes, I do agree full 100% with changing that voting system for the House of Commons, but the easiest sell would be to change the House of Lords to a House of Regional Representatives. I've said that before. So many people, even on the right, are so in favour of like abolishing and changing the House of Lords into like an elected body. It would be a massive, easy electoral win and promise. Because there's so many negative things about the House of Lords. Like, there's about 800 860 something lords in the House of Lords, while in the House of Commons there's 650 MPs. Most of them paid to be there, that we've seen from this sleaze scandal. You can play that up heavily in that campaign. Most lords don't even turn up to vote. So you've got that. The other thing as well, which would play massively into this campaign, is the fact that also most lords are hereditary lords, meaning they're just born into it. So it would be massive, a massive change for British politics getting that in, because I've just seen someone there say that a second house would have no power. A second house would have massive power. If let's say we achieved the House of Lords reform, and let's say another massive parliamentary landslide went towards the Conservatives, you can see at any forgotten what they call it now, voting system, not alternative voting system, I'm having a complete mind blank now. Progressive, yeah, I've just said it as well. Oh, I can't remember. Yeah, STV, that's it. Yeah, any single transferable vote system, or popular vote system where it's not based on first past the post, you would see the Tories would never ever have a majority. We would have very much a split parliament, a very much, shall we say, split second chamber. The Tories under this would never ever get more than about 30 to 35% of the vote. The rest of that percentage would go to the other parties, meaning that these other parties, say if we have legislation coming through to the House of Lords, they can stop it dead. They can make changes to that legislation and then bat it back to the Commons saying, we're not going to pass your terrible legislation. We've put in new parts of this bill which we want you to pass, and just bat it back to the Commons. So that would be their power, and they wouldn't, any, shall we say, sensible party wouldn't let any, shall we say, terrible legislation through, like the new Borders and Security Bill, which allows the Home Secretary to just strip British citizenship at will. Stuff like that definitely needs to be looked at and addressed, and being seen as a massive plus, not as a massive negative. And if we want to say give the House more powers, then at that point we really need to be looking at constitutional reform as well for the UK. I think it stopped. Yes, I think it stopped raining now. Luckily, it stopped raining at last. Come on in. Ugh. So it stopped raining at last. Hooray. And get on a bit. Although I don't know how far I'm going to go because I think it's going to rain again. But we do need that constitutional reform as well. The UK does need, it's been very evident during Boris Johnson's time, they're willing to just rip up the so-called gentleman's agreement and just have at it. So definitely something that should also definitely be thinking about as well, because that way we can also bring in proportional representation. That was it. Thank you very much. So it would be, and yet you are right, Crowban, constitutional reform is not easy. But then again, nothing worth ever doing really, truly ever is. So yeah, it will be a hard fight, but just like we've seen with changing the voting system, that is gathering up more and more speed, and I think people are really starting to understand, of course, the change that of course people are really starting to understand the change that could bring to the UK. So it's exactly the same format, really. Yeah, it's going to be a hard fight, but it's going to be worth doing it in the end. And I think a lot of people and a lot of those campaigners should be using that and what Boris Johnson has done just in his short time being Prime Minister as examples of why we should have, you know, a written constitution, not one that can just, well, be torn up and ignored whenever he wants. So I do think moving that along will have that. Yes, and we actually Paz, that is something that has been happening in the UK. A whole lot of councillors, regional mayors are actually implementing socialism at a local and community level. There's now more socialist councillors in the UK than ever before. So, you know, I always tell people, if you want to help change your local council or get involved in local politics, go out and, again, I am not getting any money for promoting this book, because I always do promote it. But if you want to improve, you know, your local council, you want to get those socialist policies through at a local level, you know, encouraging, you know, worker co-ops, get the local council to use their spending power to spend more money on and buy stuff from, like, the local economy, you know, buy local first and so on, that would help massively. The book Paint Your Town Red should be on an absolute must buy for you. I do keep on saying we're going to have to go through it at some point. So we will have to sort that out at some point and go through it. But yes, go out. If you don't have it, go out on Amazon and get it today. It's a very good book. It's based on the Preston model. And from Preston following this, not only are they one of the most successful local councils currently at the moment in the UK, lowest unemployment in the UK, most worker co-ops in the country, I think they believe, in that area. Starting up, they are supporting the local economy by buying, from the local economy first. They've created like all sorts of stuff, like purely like on a socialist basis, and people love to say, oh, so change their town. This is why very recently we're having a mayoral election here in South Yorkshire for the mayor of Sheffield City region, and I supported a guy called Lewis Dagnall. So I supported a guy called Lewis Dagnall because all his policies were very, very much paint your town red policies. Not only that, he was the only Labour candidate that was openly socialist. So I thought, well, there's a man who's strapping his colours to the mast. So I can appreciate that. So yeah, I voted for him as the Labour candidate. So we should be hearing that from selection ends on the 26th, I believe, although I've already voted. So if you are, by the way, a local Labour Party member, by the way, and you are listening to this, and you haven't yet voted or made your selection yet for the Labour mayorship of South Yorkshire, check your emails, because your email should have arrived. If not, log on to your My Labour account and you can do it through there. Yes, true. Yeah. Yes, true. Stay consistent. Yeah. Buy it from a local bookstore, not Amazon. That is true. Yep. Support your local bookseller. That is true. Christown, yep, 3 Labour councillors, difficult to... That is true, but it's not impossible. If you keep... And all these fights are worth having. And, I do sympathise for you if you do live, somewhere like there. But this is a fight that's worth having, and I definitely encourage you, if you haven't done also already, join your local Labour Party or local Lib Dems, or join the party that most suits you. If you want to join the Conservatives, have at it. Like I say, you are being engaged in politics, and that's what matters. To me, I've always said before, one of the things I want to encourage my viewers to really think about, of course, is engaging in politics. And politics, whoops a daisy, nearly went over there. Politics doesn't happen, once every 4 years at a general election. It happens and starts right on your doorstep. And it starts, the Northern Independence Party. It starts on your doorstep. And it's kind of shocking to me when I first started realizing, when I first started thinking about, politics and, doing this, of course, I thought, well, I'm going to have to start going and start investigating like local council meetings, like going to local council meetings, finding out what's happening in my local area. And I'm very often shocked, especially pre-pandemic. Post-pandemic has actually been quite easy because they've just done them online and you can watch the videos afterwards. You'd actually be quite surprised. You'd actually be quite surprised about the amount of people that have absolutely no idea, what's going on. In their local area, because they've never been to their they've never been to their local council meetings before. They've never even talked about them, or they've never even talked with them. Most people don't even know who their local councillor is. It's just someone that they just happen to know, or don't even know, or they know that there is someone for them, but they've never met them before. So this really, really does become an issue of engagement. And if you are living in an area where, as I think it was Chris, I think you said your name was, an area where you are having you've got 3 Labour councillors, but the vast majority are Tory, then look at the other parties that you can actually help support. Because if, say for example, Labour's not going to, shall we say, sweep the council, although it might do, look at supporting the Lib Dems to help unseat the Tories. Because in a lot of these local by-election wins that the Lib Dems have had very recently, they've always been the indicator of what has happened locally. And locally, they've had some fantastic strategical wins by getting local councillors into areas where, again, they've always voted Tory, but they won in this area. And then that gave them the confidence to then go for the by-election win that they had, first of all, in Cheshire and Amersham. So do not underestimate localism, as it's very often called. We saw in the North Shropshire by-election that it was not about national issues, it was about local issues. And very often, of course, the problems for people don't start at Westminster, they start at their doorstep. So always be, at least, so always be prepared to get involved. I've said before, I'm a member of my local Labour Party. That's sort of how I've got involved. I've done some very recently, as I've mentioned, supporting Lewis Dagnall for his run. I got involved in a text campaign, texting, Labour Party members in the region to vote for him. So it was about 40 minutes worth of my time just doing that on a Wednesday evening. You say it doesn't take a lot of time, but obviously that is it, time, of course. And my biggest political, of course, takeaway, of course, and I think I'm going to start advocating for this more and more, is that local councillors should receive a wage. You know, MPs get a wage, local councillors don't. And as a result, if you look at the makeup of your local council, it's two things. Predominantly, it tends to be very, very rich, well-off businessmen sitting on the local council and retirees. You know, this is because most people, if they run for the local council, do not have the time to run. You know, they've got to have they've got a full-time job. They're probably doing as well as being a local councillor. I'm fully believe local councillors should receive a wage. This will help to at least level the playing field and to get more talent into these local councillor seats. Because you can't just have these seats dominated by retirees and essentially the very rich. It's not something that we should be allowing to happen. And I know everyone said, oh, well, you know, you're paying, you know, people, but they should be paid. You know, local councillors give up a lot of their time to provide this service. Why are they not being paid? Because local councillors are not paid. They've never been paid. It's always been seen as this, you stand for your local council as a civic good, and as such, you know, you don't get paid for doing it. And a lot of people do think that local councillors do get paid, and yet they don't. Local councillors do not get paid. You know, when they are elected, they're normally either having to pay for all their campaign out of their own budget, or they have a very, very small budget from their local constituency that helps pay for them. Again, giving them a wage will help them and will help get more people into local politics. It will help to bring more talent into these areas. So that's certainly my take on that. And I know that's a very, very, very out there take, because not a lot of people would do. Yeah, Scottish councillors get paid. But the ones, certainly in England, I don't know about Wales, they don't get paid. They could have time from normal work to do council work, like council members in Germany does. True, you could do that. That is very true. Something that you could bring in to help the situation. But again, it's, our company's going to do that. You know, if you run for a local councillor position, is your company first of all going to help you and support you in that, or are they not? Because I think in Germany there's a lot more other rules, obviously surrounding that. But I think the best way to do it is to pay the councillors a wage. I think when you do that, you immediately allow people from lower class backgrounds to get more into politics. And that's what I'm for. So that will almost certainly be, it will be a fight to get that through, I'm not going to lie. Wait, you still got your class system? How evil. So this does really, again, feed into the whole, localism, and I think that it's something that Labour really need to sort of pay attention to. Like, we've got more devolution coming from the Conservatives, but of course, as we've said before, devolution without power and essentially the money to do that, sort of pointless. I can't wait until we get that levelling up paper from Michael Gove. I genuinely can't wait. I think it's going to be quite fun, to say the least. Certainly going to make for good reading, I'll tell you that now. That's something that we've got to look forward to this year, when that eventually comes out. So we'll have a sit down. I think we'll read that when that comes out, because that'll be quite fun. Because that's gonna set off a whole different kettle of fish, a whole set of alarm bells with many of the Tories. Chrissy, you're wondering where the ponies are today. Well, they've all been taking cover in the trees, but there are some coming up, so don't worry. I know why you were all here, really. I know why you were all here. You're just here for the ponies. I should have called this stream the ponies and politics stream, but I had no idea at the time that will become the case. But we've chosen it to be the Good Morning Walk, so the Good Morning Walk it will stay. Tree ponies. Pony politics. True, we could call it that. Just the biggest problem, of course, is mud. Like I say, it's going to be like this at least for some time. Ponies for PM. If only. If only, Tom. If only. Ponies would be a better government. Yes, that's true. Of course, you're talking about which type of ponies, though. That's why we get into serious questions, In creating my own party. We're all in the tunnel. Yes, the French ports. That's what we haven't talked about yet. In fact, I've been keeping a close eye on that as that has developed. The whole thing at the ports at the moment is an absolute nightmare. In fact, I've just had a big London store come out and say that it is not exporting anything to the EU because the paperwork has just become so much of a nightmare. And that's the biggest problem. We said it last year, when the exports stuff came in, it was the paperwork. People don't realise how much, not only that paperwork there is to actually do, and the cost of it. And if you're running like a small company or a medium-sized company, that time and the cost of that paperwork is going to cost you a heck of a lot. Not only now for exporting, but now for importing as well. And I think you're going to see a lot of companies this year just say, what's the point? What's the point of doing all this? It's costing us way too much money. But then you get the bigger problem where they lose that market. As we've seen last year, companies losing 20, 30, 40% of their business. That's huge. Some very, very wet ponies. I said I did promise you ponies, but you know, very, very wet. They're looking very, very sorry for themselves this morning. Yeah. I know how they feel. I know how they feel this morning. Oh. Yeah, it's just starting to rain again now, so I'm going to beat a very, very hasty retreat to the tunnel. As I think it was Pretty Bird said earlier today, typical Yorkshire sunshine. So yeah. So yeah, the issue at the ports, I think, is only going to get worse because there isn't the staff, there isn't the infrastructure to do this. We've already seen lorries having to queue about 3 hours down at Dover. So this is not gonna go well, especially now if you're trying to export or even import stuff to the UK. And remember, not all the rules have come into force yet. This is the thing. I think it's July. Because we've had some stuff starts in January. There's some stuff that starts in March. March and May are two big ones, and then July is the other big one. And that is when we will have the full setting. So bear in mind at the moment, the full set of laws not in place. And you've got to ask the question of, if it's this much trouble at the moment, when the full laws aren't in place, what's it going to be like in July, when they're all fully in place by then? That March and July of what year? This year. And as we've said before, companies just asking the question, what's the point of this? Why are we exporting? You know, it's taking us, 4 hours to fill out export forms. That's time they can be spending on other things. Squeeze on through. There we go. So, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. Yeah, that's true. The government could always extend them. That is right, and they have done so in the past, but you can only extend them for so long. Yeah, you are right. Companies do need to still need to import goods, and that will definitely lead to an increase in prices. A whole lot of price increases this year, I think. And I've said before, this is the year we see so many things, I think, come into collide in this. Not only that, on last Wednesday we went over the Prime Minister's promise to speed up these advantages of Brexit. But if you remember last year when we covered this, when Ian Duncan Smith went out to businesses to say, what red tape do you want cutting? And the businesses just came back and said, we don't want any of the red tape cutting. We want none of it because the more the UK diverges, the harder it is for UK companies to now export to not only the EU but potentially even import now. And especially for chemical companies in the UK, pretty much the vast majority of their sales are to the EU. If the UK changes chemical standards or anything like that, or any regulation, the UK chemical company could be in big trouble almost overnight. So we've talked, especially most of the big buzzword I think for this year, we've talked about it before, is the big buzzword for this year, of course, stagflation, where not only do you get growth, but all growth gets wiped out by inflation. So you effectively have no growth. I was having a good scratch. There you go. So expect that to... What do you want to... You just nudged me there then. The other one over here. But yes, that is of course the massive problem we're going to see this year, stagflation. So expect that to be the word that gets bandied about a whole lot this year. But as always, thank you so much for joining us again on the morning walk. Thank you very much to all the people who have super chatted during today as well. It's very much appreciated. If you would like to support the channel, there are links down below for my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me a coffee. And as always, please do remember to hit that like, share and subscribe button as well. And of course, remember to ring that bell and then you'll get a notification whenever I go live. And of course, I've got more videos coming out this week as well. Still carrying on with this little scratch, this lead scratch. But of course, as always, thank you very much to all the people who do support the channel. Even if you do, just hit the like and share buttons. It does help the channel very, very much. And of course, I do hope you have an absolutely super smashing great weekend, as they say. And if you can't be safe, at least be sensible. Do go out, get your jab, get your boosters if you haven't got them already. Still doing my little bit where I can. And of course, as always, thank you very much for joining me today. And of course, we'll see you all next week for another Good Morning Walk.